screaming heavy metal! We rock!
But the evil that men do lives on.
We gonna bang your head!
You are now listening to the Music Mania podcast, a hard-hitting show featuring all things hard rock and heavy metal. And now here are your hosts, the Twins of Chaos, Clint Switzer and Paul Lagana.
It's Friday, so that means not only are you off work for the weekend, but you are locked and loaded with us right here on the Music Mania podcast. We bring our show to you every Friday, and we are so grateful to be here. Clint Switzer, Paul Lagana, and we have a big guest coming in today because Michael Wilton from Queensryche is going to be calling in, talking about the band's new album, Condition Human, and the tour they're on right now. I love this new direction of Queensryche. Singer Todd La Torre is in there doing a great job. Paul, you and I have always been unabashed Queensryche fans. We've seen the band many times.
Absolutely, Clint. The first time I ever saw them actually was not until 2009. They were at the Voodoo Lounge here in Kansas City, and I'll tell you what, Clint, absolutely blown away at that point.
I agree. That was one of the best shows I'd seen. They were still firing on all cylinders with Geoff Tate at that point. But Paul, it was soon after that you could just kind of see the wheels coming off with Geoff Tate. And I love Geoff Tate. I think he's one of the great rock singers of all time. But the next time we saw him around, the performance suffered. They tried to do the burlesque thing. I think some things that the band didn't want to do. You know, it's talking about the founders. You know, Michael Wilton's a founding member. Scott Rockenfield, Eddie Jackson, those guys. You can kind of see where their heart is, especially in this new album, Condition Human. It's a more straight ahead metal album. I think that's where their heart always lied, man. And you could see Geoff Tate's influence being kind of more theatrical kind of stuff. You just kind of see the riff starting to form. And then in 2012, it all ended. Rocklahoma is kind of a public. It wasn't a breakup at that point, but Geoff Tate berating the crowd. We're going to ask Michael about that. He was told the Rocklahoma crowd, a crowd of 20,000 people, you guys suck.
Yeah.
That's not cool, man.
I
don't care what crowd you're in. You can't do that.
That is not what you want to do, playing to a full packed house. People paying money for a good hard-earned ticket to hear that you suck is basically something that I wouldn't want to be part of.
Oh, would you want to be told that you sucked at a crowd?
I do anyway, but I'm not playing to a packed 20,000 seat house.
Right, very good point. Yeah, and soon after that, they recruited singer Todd La Torre. This is now their second album with him, Condition Human. Great stuff. Be sure to check it out. And, you know, Michael Wilton coming up. He's a guy that's kind of the soft-spoken member of Queensryche. You know, Geoff Tate was always the one, you know, that did a lot of the press, that did talk to the media a lot more. But Michael's been carrying that flame. I mean, he's a founding member, great guy. And the thing about him I didn't know that we're going to have to ask him about is he was a star athlete in high school.
That's right.
I got to find out. I can't wait to find out what sport it was because you look at him like he's built like he could have played some football, maybe baseball. We'll have to ask him.
I think it was all three. I think it was football, baseball, and basketball. But getting back to Operation Mindcrime, that's the album that I want to hear about.
It's one of my favorite albums of all time.
Oh, absolutely. And for me, Operation Mindcrime put them on the map for me. So we're going to ask them about how that all came about, that album.
'Cause that was a concept album.
Yes.
And not something you saw all the time, especially in that veil of 80s rock in that era. You had a lot more albums, say, like, you know, Motley Crue's Dr. Feelgood than you did a concept album that was dark lyrics but sonically, conceptually, one of my favorite albums of all time. Literally, it's in my top 5. It has been most of my life. I absolutely love that album. But you're right, it was that. And then, of course, Empire, which was more commercial. Right. I think most Queensryche fans lean towards Operation Mindcrime as their favorite of the two. But Empire had a lot of hits on it, too. Mm-hmm. Silent Lucidity, you know, Jet City Woman, those kind of songs. But Queensryche's been doing this for so long. They were so different back in the early 80s when they had their first EP to Warning. Rage for Order was so progressive and so different. It just didn't, you know, and it's amazing to me they did wind up achieving commercial success because their albums and their look and their sound was also different.
Yeah, they won some awards over the years, and also that both Operation Mindcrime and Empire spurned about 6 or 7, like you said, 6 to 7 hits. So
absolutely great stuff. And I'll tell you what, guys, without further ado, on the horn right now we have Mr. Michael Wilton, founding member of Queensryche. Michael, welcome to the show, man. How's everything going?
Oh, everything is going good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You guys are knee-deep in a tour right now. I know you got a show here this weekend in Ferndale, Washington. What's this tour been like? I mean, I know you guys have been out doing what you do. You guys have been out on tour basically since you were about 24 years old. But how's this tour been for you, and how's everything going?
Everything's going good. We just got off a tour with the Scorpions, and we've been pretty busy just promoting, marketing, and playing our asses off, getting Condition Human out there, and just having fun. And here we are, right in the middle of 2016. And the band is going very strong, and we're just keeping it going. And we're really excited to kind of do some of these shows in June and July, which will be great as a pre-send-off when we go to Europe.
Yeah, I was going to mention you guys go to Europe later, I think in August, and I mean you guys are always on always doing the road thing. That's what you guys have been as a band your whole career. But I want to get into the album because Condition Human, to me, it's a natural evolution for what this band is right now, and to me, it's the best, I think, Queensrÿche album since probably Empire. Just kind of go into what it was, the process of making this album. I mean, the singer Todd La Torre, getting his footing under him. This is his, I believe, second album, since joining Queensrÿche. How important was this album for you guys, and what was kind of the process going into recording it?
Oh yeah, I mean, this was obviously the Queensrÿche had momentum, right? And after touring on the self-titled album, and we went into this, and we had a body of music that we just wanted to really dive into and really utilize the talents of Queensrÿche, and really emphasize on kind of the legacy of the band in the early albums, and to pull those kind of experiences and infuse those into the recording, and we got this producer named Zeus, who was totally on board with the songs and totally believed in them, and it was just a time where the band was gelled. I mean, we were really clicking on all cylinders, and it's looking in retrospect, it was just kind of an evolutionary process of growing as a band of brothers, and just taking the creativity and the songs, where we wanted to go, and to do something that didn't sound like the last album, so we wanted to really make this one special. And so anyway, it's just good to have a bunch of guys that are all on the same page, and having fun again, and producing really fun Queensrÿche music.
Absolutely, and I just, again, love this direction, and Paul and I both just such huge Queensrÿche fans, seen the band in many, eras and incarnations. In fact, somebody asked me once, who's your favorite band ever to come out of Seattle? I said Queensrÿche, and they looked at me like they wanted me to say Alice in Chains or something. I'm like, no, it's Queensrÿche. That's how that'll always be. So, I mean, I want to get into the current singer Todd La Torre. What a wonderful job I think he's done. I think a lot of people, including myself, when this all came about in 2012, were skeptical. Of course, you replace a singer, you don't know what's going to come next. You don't know what it's going to sound like. The very first time I saw a video with Todd La Torre singing, I think it was Take Hold the Flame, I was blown away. I knew this was the guy for the gig, but it's 4 years in now. How important has Todd's inclusion to this band been for kind of the band's evolution at this point?
Well, obviously it's critical. I mean, he was... just how it happened, I guess, was fate. But, thrust into that position, it's not an easy deal, and he's a trooper for doing it. But, he has the musical ability, and he has the songwriting frenzy that we need, and, we're touring a lot and everything, so it's just it's been a good gelling, growing process for Todd. Not easy when you got such hardcore fans, but he's won the fans over. We've won, so many people over, and it's so great to see all the great crowds that are coming to see Queensrÿche now with Todd, because he's just the energy's back. The band's playing great, and and he's a great front man. He's the guy that's giving everybody in the band a good shot in the arm, of adrenaline, and we're having fun playing all over the world. And he is definitely at home, and we get so many compliments. It's like you couldn't have found a more perfect person, to replace your old singer. And it's just like that every show that we go to, and it's just people are just so into Todd.
Absolutely. It's got to be gratifying for the band to be, to able to go in the direction you want to go, to do kind of the music that Queensryche fans love. And to me, things maybe got off track there a little bit, kind of in, before you guys made the change with Todd. But I want to go back to the evolution, to the genesis of this band. Michael, because you formed this band with Eddie Jackson, Scott Rockenfield. You guys were in the early '80s. The Mob. You guys came out as that. But I want to know, because the band was so stylistically and sonically different for that time, and so ahead of its time. Did you guys ever think that you would wind up achieving any level of commercial success, given kind of that progressive style you guys had at that time?
I think it kind of blew us away when we were at our day jobs and we heard Queen of the Reich on the radio.
Yeah.
I think that was, that's popular. But we were a band that didn't want to play top 40 music. That's what was going on in Seattle at that time. And we were listening to the British Invasion. We were listening to all these cool heavy metal bands coming out of England and Europe, and that's where our hearts were. We wanted to, we were into bands that had two guitar players that were, doing double solos and progressive drums and just badass vocals. And that's kind of it. We kind of came into this, wanting to be, a group, but we wanted to be musicians, not rock stars. So for us, it was more about the music and progressing as writers and individuals, and progressing with each album, doing something different than the previous album. And we did that, and then timing, I guess, is what happened. The record industry started doing really well. People were going to concerts and arenas, and ticket prices were cheap, and then all of a sudden MTV popped on, and then VH1 popped on, and lo and behold, that's kind of right in that climb that we were in, and MTV, kind of took us under their arms for the Empire album. I think they were spinning like 6 or 7 videos from that album, and so that brief few years, that's when we were kind of hitting the mainstream. And it was interesting, it's a lot of work and a lot of pressure, but we won some awards, and I've got them, and I'm looking at them, and I go, wow, it'd be nice to do that again someday. I don't even know if MTV plays videos anymore, but anyway,
I doubt that.
It's just when you do something this long, and you got your ups and your downs, and now the fun and the hard work is back upon us, and we're rebuilding, and it's a jungle out there. But if you can get some popularity and some spins on radio and TV, it's all the better to you.
No doubt about that, Michael. I wanted to go back to actually, obviously, Operation Mindcrime, which was obviously huge for you guys. Now, concept albums back then, they were rare, but they weren't unheard of. Just what was the thinking behind that album, and what were you hoping to achieve with that?
Well, that was a big change in the band as far as the business side was. We signed with Q-Prime Management, who had Metallica and Def Leppard and all these great bands, and they kind of said, do what you guys want, and Geoff had this idea of doing a conceptual, thematic story throughout the record with the music, and I think we scratched our heads at first, but and then we put it all together, and Chris DeGarmo and I really put our heads together and started riffing and writing and kind of not knowing what was going to happen. because it was a lot of wow, a conceptual album. Is this really the right move? And but you know what, we put our hearts into it, and the outcome, at first it was not a big splash, but eventually, like I said, MTV picked up Eyes of a Stranger, and then it kind of took off from there.
As we speak, it's been in my top 5 albums for basically my whole life, and just one of the great albums of the decade, of all time, of metal. Can't say enough about it, and that's certainly not all the good work you guys did, because I think Rage for Order is vastly underrated, one of the most ahead of its time albums of all time, but you guys achieved so much during that time, and I think that's a true testament to the band. You talked about the fans being as hardcore as they are, but I want to go back. Obviously, we talked about it being 4 years since Geoff Tate and you guys parted ways. There's been a lot made of that, a lot of things said. We don't need to rehash all those things, but I want to go back to a specific incident, and one thing where I personally, as a fan, and noticed that I thought maybe the time had come, and it was at Rocklahoma 2012 when Geoff basically started verbally tirade against the crowd, saying the crowd sucks, this and that. That hasn't ever really come up. He parted ways from the band just a couple weeks later. How instrumental was that incident at Rocklahoma into you guys parting ways? I know there was probably other stuff brewing, but that was kind of a no bueno situation for him on stage, I'd say.
Yeah, it was a bad day, obviously, but things in a career run its course, and not to do it so publicly, I think, may have been the way that it had to happen. But anyway, it was just like with any business, you have your ups and your lows, and when you get to the point where no one's seeing eye to eye anymore, it's time to move on. Something different needs to happen, and and that's basically what it is. It needed to happen. Nobody really was vibing in the band, so that was the only alternative.
Well, it happens. It's rock and roll. You look at the bands touring today. It is just impossible. You're on the road with somebody, especially for 30 plus years, like you guys. It's unbelievable. And I think, I think a lot of people looked at it too, and the way that you say things like, hey, now stylistically we can do what we want. It seemed to me like that there was an element that Geoff Tate brought to the band, which he's one of my favorite rock singers of all time, great singer. But some things that happened that, like the burlesque, that was maybe like not quite what people wanted to see from Queensryche. Is that a fair statement to make?
Well, it's like I said, when everybody's not vibing on the direction, and the music's, you see it in the performances, you see it in the crowds. And, it's time to ramble on, It's, but, and that's kind of what we did, again.
Well, there's no doubt about that. And we actually got to see you guys here in Kansas City back in, I think it was 2009. And it was a hell of a show at the Voodoo. And the next show, I think, was in 2011. And it was it just seemed different to me. So Clint actually made the same comment. So, but before I let you go, Michael, there was one thing I wanted to ask you, because I read somewhere where you were like a star athlete in high school. So I just wanted to know a little bit about what sports you actually played, and what are your favorite teams now, actually.
Well, yeah, through junior high and high school, I was destined to be a baseball player. I wanted to be a professional baseball player, but what happened? Oh, I went to a rock concert that Black Sabbath and Van Halen were playing, and I saw Van Halen, and they opened up with this song "On Fire," and it just struck me, and I go, "That's what I want to do," and that's kind of the pinnacle. But in the formative years, I was a jock. I was very much into sports. I played all Little League sports. I went to Europe on a Little League team, and then still to this day, I'm still, I'm a golfer. I'm an avid golfer.
Nice.
I golf with, my friends and Mr. DeGarmo once in a while.
Oh, nice.
And, it's really fun, but I've always been active all my life, so it's just kind of the way I was brought up. I was groomed for that. So
well, I know you're a Seattle guy, but you were born in San Francisco. The Giants have won 3 World Series in I think the last 6 years. I mean, do you still follow any teams? I mean the Seahawks have won a Super Bowl. Your area of the country tends to win a lot of championships. I mean, do you still follow those teams when you can?
Oh yeah, I mean I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. I go to as many games as I can and support the team. And I'm a Seattle Mariner fan. I'm a baseball fan. So unfortunately, their season is kind of like when we're on the road, so I don't get to see very many games. But I check them out on television. I'm always on the Root network looking for a Mariner game, and and the Sounders. I haven't been able to catch any live Sounder games, but I'm all for that. And
awesome.
As far as the Bay Area teams, I mean, I was born there, and like I have an underlying mutual respect for them. But my heart's here in Seattle.
Absolutely, you're not going to cheer for the 49ers anytime soon, is what you're saying.
No, not really.
Well, guys, I'll tell you what. Be sure to go to Queensryche.com. Check out all the tour dates. You guys are going to be touring America. You go to Europe, I think Australia, and then back to America later in the summer/fall. Guys, go check out that. And we want to make sure that you guys check out the album. It's Condition Human. It's absolutely unbelievable, and we can't endorse enough. I think, Michael, what's important is we can't endorse enough for what you guys are doing now. And with singer Todd La Torre, absolutely unbelievable. The notes he hits, like I said, the very first video I saw, I think was Take Hold the Flame. I was just blown away. I'm blown away by every performance I see of his. I'll tell you what, Michael, next time you guys roll through the Midwest, roll through Kansas City, let's hook up, let's get together, man. We'll catch a game, maybe come catch a Royals game with us out here in Kansas City some summer, man. We'll show you a World Series team out here. How about that?
That sounds great. I love getting, when you get in the grind on the road, it's always great to go to a sporting event, and that would be very nice. I appreciate that.
That's funny because the athletes go see you guys to let off steam, so it's just that's kind of how the circle of life, isn't it?
Yeah, the rock life is just a means to get on the golf course.
There you go.
Famous last words. All right, Michael, we can't thank you enough for joining us, man. Thanks for taking your time. Have some great shows this weekend, and then great luck on the road, man. We'll catch up soon. We'll come say hello next time we get you guys here in the Midwest, here in Kansas City, my man.
All right, take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Michael Wilton from Queensryche. And Clint, this guy, he has done it all. He knows it all.
The Whip.
The Whip.
That's what they call him. Forgot to ask him about that. I wanted to ask how he got that nickname, whether it was on the athletic field or the way he handles his, his fretboard on his guitar.
It was the fretboard, actually. Okay. That's how he got his name. But we can't thank him enough for joining us today. The guy was forthright in everything he said, and we absolutely appreciate him joining us
And
today.
Another thing, a lot of the preconceived notions we had about maybe the breakup or, with the departure of Geoff Tate, it seemed like he kind of went along and agreed with some of the points we'd made before we had him on, and I think that it was just clear. Maybe it was that transparent that the wheels were falling off, and I'm just so glad that Queensryche's on the path they're on now. And Condition Human's such a good album. And guys, go to Queensryche.com, check out all the tour dates. Make sure you go see this band. Do not pass up seeing Queensryche just because Geoff Tate isn't in there, because Todd La Torre can absolutely sing all these songs. Look it up on YouTube, man. His performances are spot on. And guys, you know what? As we do this, the more shows that we have, the more times we do this, the more thankful we get just that we have you guys tuning in, because we started this not knowing if a single person would listen. We didn't even know how to submit a podcast to iTunes when we first started this. Now we've got lots of iTunes subscribers. We've had so many shows, so many interviews, so many great musicians. Our stuff on YouTube is blowing up. Thank you guys so much for doing that and going and visiting us on social media, man. We need it. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, right. You know the drill.
Absolutely. and we can't thank you all enough again for joining us. And I'll tell you what, I never thought I'd be doing something like this, but with Clint Switzer at the helm, bringing me in, it's been an absolute pleasure. And to actually get to talk to these people that I listened to back in the 80s and 90s, it just unbelievable.
You're right. I think that's what it comes down to, is being able to have these conversations, because anybody these days on the area of the internet can turn on a microphone, can turn on their smartphone and start recording, start talking, start calling out people, start tweeting people. We wanted this to be legitimate. We wanted it to be as professional as possible, and we wanted to develop relationships with a lot of these bands and a lot of these artists, because we want to be able to go out and check them out whenever they come here and meet them, do interviews, do this kind of thing. This is just such a passion for us, Paul, and I couldn't do it without you, because you, my man, I know you can't tell by our voices, but we're not exactly the same age. I'm this young guy that missed all this great stuff in front of me when because I wasn't old enough yet, but you lived it. You were baptized in the blood of rock and roll long before I was born,
right,
my man. And that's
again, it's unbelievable that to actually get to talk to these guys that, and just not only to talk to them, but to listen to every single story they have. And I mean, every single one of these people that we've talked to, I mean, they've lived everything.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and it reminded me of the first time I saw Queensryche, which is actually a few years before we saw them together. In 2005, they did another Operation Mindcrime tour where they performed the entire album in its entirety and some other hits after that. It was at the Uptown Theater in Kansas City. I actually had to sneak in our mutual friend Aaron Strong. I had to sneak him into that concert because it was sold out. That was the first time I got to see Queensryche. I remember they opened with The Whisper off Rage for Order, one of my favorites, and then they went into after that they did the Mindcrime album. And so then the time we saw them together, which was equally as amazing. And just it takes you back. You see these guys live, you hear these albums your whole life, and you're like, oh my gosh, you're talking to them. It's a huge pleasure for us, and we just can't thank Michael enough. Can't thank Queensryche enough for doing the interview. Check them out, guys. Do not miss them on this tour. Guys, it's summer. Get out there. I hope you're enjoying some concerts, because we certainly are. Paul, we got Guns N' Roses coming up next week on this very show. Go ahead and spoiler alert. Do we spoil it?
we have got to let you guys know.
Who is it?
Eddie Trunk, ladies and gentlemen.
The number one hard rock DJ in America, Eddie Trunk, will be joining us next week. Paul, thanks so much for sitting in with me doing this, guys. Hit us up, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Music Mania Podcast. Hashtag it, tweet it, share it, like it. What else can you do?
I don't know. Despise it? No, just kidding.
They haven't created that button yet.
Everybody have a great weekend.